Welcome to the Saturday Slam and Jam here on the Athletic NBA Daily. On today's show, we're talking headlines from the week of NBA basketball, Rookie of the Year odds, and we're going to have Trill Bro Dude from the You Know Ball podcast to talk about the chaos that is the Philadelphia 76ers. And we're going to do some trivia after that. But before we get all of that started, Al, please tell me, what are the top stories from the NBA this week?
Well, Andrew, the top story this week was Cavs-Celtics on Tuesday, a matchup between the top two teams in the East. The Cavs came into the game having won their first 15 games of the season, and despite getting down by as much as 21 on the road, Cleveland came back and made it a game before losing 120 to 117. Jason Tatum had 33, 12, and 7 with 6 threes, while Donovan Mitchell led the Cavs with 35, 8, and 3. The Cavs' 15-0 start to the season is now tied with the 93-94 Rockets for the second best start in NBA history. These two teams will meet again in only 2 weeks on December 1st, this time in Cleveland. Now, the Cavs' winning streak wasn't the only one to come to an end this week. The Los Angeles Lakers, who had won 6 in a row, finally lost in a close one to the Orlando Magic. Franz Wagner hit a go-ahead 3 with 2.5 seconds left to give the Magic a 119 to 118 win. In the win, Franz had 37, 6, and 11.
He's been
and
ridiculous.
Has been on fire recently. He's averaging 29 per game over his last 6. For LA, the loss stung, but what a week it was for the Lakers, and especially rookie Dalton Knecht. Since being inserted into the starting lineup 4 games ago, Knecht is averaging almost 24 points a game, including a wild one against Utah where he scored 37, including 18 straight in the closing minutes of the third quarter. Knecht tied a rookie record with 9 three-pointers in the game. Afterwards, Jazz head coach Will Hardy said, quote, "In the second half, it seemed like everybody in the gym knew that Dalton Knecht was going to shoot the next shot, with the exception of a few people. The problem was those few people were on our team. The Jazz are 3-12 and have lost 4 straight. One more loss, and the Jazz will have a 5-game losing streak, which is what the Phoenix Suns have been up to lately. The Suns, who started 9-2, but have been without Kevin Durant the last couple weeks, have dropped 5 straight and have a point differential of negative 2.4, which is only better than the Blazers, Jazz, and Pelicans in the West." Ooh. Of the 5 losses, none was more painful than a 120 to 117 loss to the Timberwolves in Minnesota. With 34 seconds left and the game tied at 117, the Suns missed 3 straight shots, including 2 from Devin Booker, who had 44 in the game, before turning it over to the Wolves with 2.1 seconds left. After advancing the ball, Joe Ingles passed it into Julius Randle, who hit a game-winning three-pointer from the top of the key to give the Wolves the win. The momentum would be short-lived for the Wolves, however, as they would drop their next game to the Raptors 110 to 105 in Scotty Barnes' return. One team hoping their players return soon is the Sacramento Kings, who were without all of Sabonis, DeRozan, and Malik Monk in their last 2 games. Luckily, the Kings still have De'Aaron Fox, who over a back-to-back against Minnesota and Utah at home this week, scored 109 points while shooting 58% from the field. Only Kobe Bryant and Wilt Chamberlain have ever scored that many points in consecutive games.
It's so wild.
It is very wild. The Kings are going to need more than Fox, though, because they've gone 3-4 in their last 7. They've dropped to 8-7 overall, which is good for 11th in the West. And finally, a little more history this week from some former teammates. James Harden passed Ray Allen for second all-time in three-pointers made, while Russell Westbrook became the first player to reach 200 triple-doubles. And those, Andrew, were the top stories if you ignore the Sixers. We're going to get to them in a second.
I was going to say, we will not be ignoring the Sixers. In fact, we're not going to ignore them starting right now. We're going to go to our BetMGM line of the week, brought to you by BetMGM. So we're going to give you a negative spin on the Sixers and a positive one. The negative one is, of course, there's no way that the Sixers could hit their over-under of 50.5 this season, which it just seems... It's just funny that that was the Vegas over under, and it made sense. They had a really good summer. They should win 50 games. And now their over under is at 38.5. And even that feels like if they got over 38.5, it would feel like a little bit like a miracle, right?
The way it looks right now. Now, Andrew, they could go 48-20 the rest of the way. Well, actually, they need to go 49 and they could get to 51 wins, beat their over-under, and that seems doable. I don't know. The Sixers are so tough because, yes, it's 38.5. I feel like I'm just in this mode with a lot of other NBA podcasts where you just keep repeating to yourselves, they're in the East. They're in the East. Look at that. They're only a couple games out of the play. And at some point, there will be a time where we have to just admit this team's not good. But until then, I see 38.5. I'm like, they should be able to get there. I mean, if they can just have a normal month, I feel like they would be fine. I just don't know if they ever have that normal month.
Yeah. Give me the under. I'll take the under. Are you taking the over then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, baby. Go Sixers.
Okay. The next one, let's spin it positive now, in which I ask myself this question every time I watch the Sixers. And like, what does an alternate universe look like where the Sixers just decide to take somebody else at the 16th pick? Like what does that world look like if they just, I mean, there are a lot of, decent role players in this draft. Is it just so crazy to think that maybe they would have taken like Tristan da Silva or even Yves Missi, who I think has been pretty good, but I don't know it would make that big of a difference for the Sixers. Or if they took Deron Holmes, like that was a Twitter darling out there. Is it so crazy to think that they would have taken if they took somebody else? But if they did, just think about how much more hopeless this situation would feel. Because right now, Jared McCain, if you go to BetMGM, has the best odds at a plus 140 for Rookie of the Year. And I think it's right. He has had an excellent stretch here and it looks like he should be Rookie of the Year. He looks like he's clearly the best player in this class. To me so far, at least he's had the best start to anybody in this class. Besides Dalton Connect, who is a plus 200 to win Rookie of the Year. McCain looks like a steal for the Sixers and probably their lone bright spot this season.
Yeah, it flips so quick, too, because we talked about the Rookie of the Year odds like 3 weeks ago. Did not even mention Jared McCain's name. He was plus 3,000 in preseason and is now the overwhelming favorite. I mean, even after Dalton Connect, it drops all the way to plus 1,100 for Zachary Risacher. So... it's been pretty amazing. He's had 8 of his 14 games. He's scored at least 18 points.
Yeah.
Which that alone is amazing. 6 of his games, he scored 20 plus points. He has been the one lone bright spot. The one thing Sixers fans can cling to as they watch these miserable games.
It is honestly unbelievable and really such a big win for them because there's a lot of guys that just aren't delivering anything to their teams that were selected, 16 and below. So at least the Sixers have that. And Al,
nope, wait,
it's time.
Andrew,
before. Oh, you don't want to go there yet. Okay.
I don't want to go there yet.
Okay.
Just a little bit longer before we talk to Trill Bro Dude. I did want to update one thing because we're not going to do favorites this week. This is a very special week on Wheel of Fandom, and we wanted to.
It is so special that I cannot wait to get there. I'm just like, let's just bring Trill in immediately, please.
Yeah, usually we do like 5 questions, and I messaged Trill. I was like, hey, would you mind if we just expanded this section and asked you just a ton of questions? So we're not doing favorites, but I did want to do one thing before we got to the Sixers, which is our Slam and Jam championship tracker. Okay. Yeah. There's a set of things that championship teams have done. All of them. Every single one. Going back to, actually, it's not to the beginning, but I think I went as back as like the 60s. So it's pretty far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking at the Providence Steamrollers or whoever it was, but I went back to the NBA that we know, and all those champions shared some things. So for instance, no NBA champion has ever had worse than the 9th best odds in preseason. Now, that only goes back to 84-85 because that's as far as it goes back with the odds. So right there, that knocks off the Lakers, Suns, Pacers, Cavs, Kings. They're out, Andrew. Wow. They don't share that with all NBA champions. The next thing, in their first 5 games, no champion has ever started 1-4 or 0-5. So you know who this knocks out. This knocks out the Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that we can talk about so far is that no champion has ever had fewer than 4 wins in their first 10. So no champion has ever gone 3-7 in their first 10. So right now, Andrew, it's been like a month into the season. We can already narrow down the crop of true contenders. Now, these are teams that so far have checked every box that every other NBA champion has ever checked. There's only 7 of them, and only 2 in the East, Boston and the New York Knicks. And then in the West, we have Denver, Minnesota, OKC, Dallas, and Golden State. Those 7 are the only teams that currently check all these boxes. So we're going to check in again at the halfway point because there's another stat having to do with your record after 41 games. And we'll see if any of these teams...
the Cleveland Cavaliers don't check boxes?
They don't, Andrew, because they had worse than 9th best odds in the preseason. And so they were knocked out because of that. Now, this is just to win it all. So this is, you could still make the finals. I mean, the Heat have made the finals and broken a lot of these things. So you can still have a great season, Andrew. But if we're talking about winning a ring, these are the things you have to do according to history.
I just didn't think we were going to burst Cleveland Cavaliers fans' bubble this week with that stat.
It is a little rude. But hey, maybe they'll be the one that just breaks everything. And that would be fun too.
That would be fun as well. Something else that's a little rude is just talking to anybody that's a Sixers fan for a real long time. We're about to do that with Trill Bro Dude right after this quick break.
All right, Andrew, it's time for the Wheel of Fandom, the weekly segment where we spin a wheel, it lands on a team, and that team falls into the pits of hell. 1 week after landing on the Dallas Mavericks, who went 0-4, the wheel landed on the Philadelphia 76ers, who lost all 3 of their games this week. It got so bad that after a loss at Miami, the Sixers had a players-only meeting during which Tyrese Maxey called Joel Embiid out for being late for everything. And to make matters worse, in their next game, a loss to Memphis, Paul George hyperextended his left knee for the second time this month, will be sidelined at least 2 games. The Sixers have lost 5 straight and currently have the worst record in the league at 2-12. Now, I know that all sounds bad, but here's some good news, Sixers fans. Cleaning the Glass says the Sixers have the profile of a 3-win team. Our guest today is Trill Bro Dude, host of the You Know Ball podcast, a mostly Sixers podcast. You can find You Know Ball on your favorite podcast app and on Patreon, where you can sign up for extra episodes each week. Trill, how's your week been?
I mean, other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Like, Jesus, it was, it has been a rough start to the season so far. Obviously, I would like to be here under better circumstances. But, I feel like every time you guys have had me on in the past, it's usually been related to trades. So it's good to be on the other side where we're just talking about, potentially throwing the season into the garbage so that we don't hand a top 10 pick to your Oklahoma City Thunder.
Welcome to Philadelphia. So let's talk big picture a little bit. The Sixers are arguably had the best offseason in the league, and we're coming into the season with people talking about this being the team that is like the most talented Sixers team in the Joel Embiid era. Now they're 2-12. How would you approach the rest of this season as a fan? Like, what are you supposed to do? Do you have hope still that things can turn around, or have you completely given up?
You just wake up every morning and you check Jared McCain's BPM on Basketball Reference because there's nothing else to look forward to. The team is completely disorganized. I've complained a lot about just kind of looking completely unprepared for every game. And I don't know if that's on the GM or the coaching staff or, the star players, to be completely honest with you. I do think that the biggest thing about this team when they built it was they built it with the idea that they would have 3 stars. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think any of the 3 stars have played like stars this season.
Sure.
Part of that is due to the fact that obviously Joel was out with the injury to start the year, which I had anticipated some ups and downs. I didn't think that, part of the plan was that he was going to miss the first 2 weeks of the season and then come back and then be in and out of the lineup again. And then on top of that, obviously you just stated Paul George has a second knee injury in a month, and it looks like the same exact knee injury that kept him out for 2 weeks. So it's basically, I've talked about it. We've basically done the Nick Nurse speed run in Toronto, but without the championship. Like the first 40 games were great. We were like, first 40 games were great. Everyone loved Nurse. He was maximizing the Maxey and Embiid combo. The offense was near the top of the league. It was looking like they were contenders. They were maybe one move away. And then everything kind of came crashing down when Joel Embiid went out of that game and tore his meniscus. And ever since has truthfully not been the same. So ultimately what this comes down to is I still think that if this team had a healthy Joel Embiid that looked like an MVP candidate and could actually play the games, they would probably be fine because everyone would be able to be placed into their normal roles. Even with Paul George in and out of the lineup, I think that they would be, one of the better teams in the NBA. But we haven't seen that version of Joel. Paul George can never stay on the court. And to be completely honest with you, Tyrese Maxey has just not really been able to scale up in a way when those guys are out of the lineup. So the only thing we really have to look forward to so far this season is Jared McCain.
So even acknowledging the injuries, which you mentioned, obviously played a huge role in this 2-12 start, it still feels like this has played out worse than it should have. For those who don't know, the Sixers' only 2 wins did require overtime. So besides those obvious reasons, what are some of the other issues that have contributed to this 2-12 start?
I would say a lack of general skill on the roster. I don't really know how else to put it. Unironically, I think there is at least an argument that Gershon Yabusele has been our second best player this year, third best player this year. And this is a player that we signed in August, like after the Olympics, after everything was done. It's kind of similar to the Kelly Oubre signing from a year ago, but Kelly has completely regressed in his role. They really just have a lack of shooting. They have a lack of good passers, and then they have really no functional offense due to that. Like the defense has been good at times. We also happen to be getting like the worst shooting luck on both ends of the court, but also part of that is due to the fact that we're leaving shooters wide open on defense, and our shooters that are being left wide open on defense are Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre and guys that, teams want to shoot. So right now, it is really like the fact that it like I said, the general lack of skill from the rest of the roster, even beyond just the stars not playing like stars, has also been a massive struggle. And all of the fringe signings that Daryl Morey made this offseason, it was like they all instantly got as washed as you possibly can be at the same time. It was like Kyle Lowry fell even further down the cliff. Yeah. Eric Gordon became even more unplayable. Andre Drummond cannot play more than like 5 to 10 minutes in a game. And now they're basically left with a slow, small, old, unskilled roster. And really what this comes down to for me is like, even if the stars were playing better, there would be obvious holes that you could address at the trade deadline with the contracts and the picks that they have. But now you have to completely re-examine what you do with this season, because there's no use in pushing in the chips when the team, not only are they not contenders, like they might not make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. So I think that this is something that we'll learn more about when we hit probably that 20 game mark, now that Paul George is going to miss more games. And we'll understand more what the team does from there. But right now it's like you said, it couldn't be worse. They have the worst record in the NBA, the worst offense in the NBA. And I can't even believe we're sitting here talking about this today, to be honest with you.
You mentioned Kyle Lowry. I was on Cleaning the Glass. He has taken 6% of his shots at the rim, which among guards, the only other guard who has taken that few of percentage of their shots is Chris Paul, which really speaks to how good Chris Paul has been without the ability to get to the rim anymore. With the fact that Kyle Lowry, I mean, I was watching that Miami Heat game, and it looks like he can't play right now.
Yeah, basically the thing with Lowry is that he's already a hesitant shooter as it is. And when he is, Lowry's a Hall of Fame player, great career. The issue right now with as he ages as a small guard is defensively he's been getting exposed, and then in addition to that he's just not a threat to score at all. Like you said, he can't get to the rim. He really has no lift even in the mid-range. He doesn't have a floater game. So when they give him the ball to run actions to even get Joel in place, it's just so easy to defend a guy that you don't have to worry about as a scoring threat literally at all. And in addition to that, he was shooting 60% from three in his first 4 games of the season. And since then, I think he's made 2 threes in this stretch and has just completely cratered the Miami Heat, who, look, they used to have Kyle Lowry and Caleb Martin. Their strategy the other night when we played them was leave both of those guys wide open. They don't want to shoot. And if they do shoot, it's, we'll live with the results. And I've said this about some of the older guys in the NBA, the Chris Pauls, the LeBrons, who, even the KDs. When they come back from an extended period of break, they always look like a better or best version of themselves because they have fresh legs. They can come in. They really can, their shot just tends to fall more often. This is why I think after the All-Star break, you see boosts from these guys. When you get to the playoffs, you see boosts from these guys. We saw the best of Kyle Lowry in the first 4 games. And ever since, he's been, in my opinion, by far the worst starter in the NBA. He's just doesn't have anything left in the tank. And the problem with this now is the fact that Nick Nurse trusts Kyle Lowry. He won a championship with Kyle Lowry and is basically sees him as a coach on the floor. And I just think that he needs to be a coach on the bench right now because it's just this, like I said, this team is kind of slow, kind of old, kind of small. And Lowry is the perfect encapsulation of all of that. And it kind of just brings out all of the flaws that are built within the team.
Mm-hmm. So with this 2-12 start, I think how many times have we said that on this show now? 5 or 6 times. With this 2-12 start, you started to hear some Sixers fans wanting to tank the season. I know you've been spending some time on Tankathon. Is it even possible for them to just punt this season?
It's definitely possible. So here's why. I don't think that people realize how bad this team actually is because I don't think they really watch them. Like you said, they've won 2 games in overtime. They didn't even win in regulation. And
it's November 22nd, and they haven't won a game in regulation. That is pretty wild.
They haven't won a game in regulation. And really, if I were to break down every single game, they had a fake comeback against Memphis so that the score didn't look that bad. They got blown out in that game. There have been, other than the games that they actually won, I think you could make the argument that there has been a maximum of 2 games that they had a chance to win outside of that game. And really it was the Suns game, Paul George's first game back, that they had a chance to win in the 4th quarter with 5 minutes left. They blew the lead. They were up 7 with 3 minutes left and they blew the lead. But I think that people don't really wrap their brain around not only how bad this team is, but also one of the things that I point out in that Pacers game that they won in overtime, Caleb Martin had one of the stupidest fouls I've ever seen in my life to Tyrese Halliburton because he thought that the Sixers were up 3 and they were actually up 2, and Halliburton missed both free throws that would have sent it to double overtime. So we could be sitting here with them having 1 win against the Charlotte Hornets in overtime. And by the way, the best 2 players in that game were Jared McCain and Gershon Yabusele. So it will get, to be clear, it will get better as Joel gets a little bit more healthy. Even if he doesn't reach MVP level status again, he will look like, in the last game, he finally looked like at least an all-star level player, I would say. Maxey will get better. I mean, he's shooting so horribly. Paul George was also shooting terribly. These are legitimately some of the best shooters in the NBA that are just having horrible starts to the season. But I do think between the factor of guys being in and out of the lineup like Paul George and Embiid, and they still want to do their back-to-back plan where, they sit them on the second half of a back-to-back. And I think in addition to that, just the, once one guy's back, another guy gets hurt. And this roster really only functions when everyone is healthy. So I think that there definitely is a chance that they can go into the tank. The only teams that I think that they are almost certainly going to finish with a better record than in the Eastern Conference are the Wizards and the Nets. Other than that, you could tell me anyone else finish with a better record because they've shown a different level of competency as a basketball team. This team just looks like they've already quit and it's November 22nd.
So I want to ask you about Embiid. Because in the offseason, he was talking about how all his focus is on the playoffs and winning. He starts the season injured. Then he has that dust up with the reporter, which was very easy to defend. And then this week we have this players only meeting that gets leaked to Shams. When asked about being confronted for his tardiness, Embiid said, quote, "Whoever leaked that is a real piece of shit. I don't want to get into detail, but that whole thing, that part of it took probably 40 seconds, but it's Joel Embiid, so things will always get blown out of proportion. It's whatever, though. I'll take it. I'm the reason for everything, so I guess I'll take the blame for everything." How are you feeling about Embiid right now?
I mean, honestly, I kind of stopped trying to do like the whole psychology thing with Embiid like 2 years ago. Because everything he says in the media just constantly is contradicting, and he changes his mind every week on, you know, what the reason is, why the team is the way that it is, and why everyone hates him, and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I've just to be completely honest, like I've always obviously supported Joel. Like I've said that for years that the Sixers have actually been Joel Embiid merchants. I don't think that anyone on the team really can function without him. But now he might be at a different point of his career. And I think all of these things that, you know, you dealt with the Joel Embiid experience when it comes to all of the media stuff and you know, like the being late to practice and games sometimes, you could deal with it when he was an MVP level player that guaranteed you 50 wins and a win in the playoffs at least every year. I think that the calculus starts to change when, you know, he might not be that level of player anymore, and there are rising stars in the organization, and Maxey and McCain, and everyone is new on this team. Like, people are trying to adjust. Caleb Martin's new, Yabu's new. Like, he hasn't played with the large majority of players on this team. So I think the thing that I just want to see from Joel is like, just that he cares about being a good teammate. And like, I know he's not the best quote unquote leader, but also, you know, look, star players have been able to win championships. They've been able to contend without being great leaders before. And I think Maxey is obviously the vocal leader in the locker room, and he has a great relationship with Embiid, which is why he was able to say what he said to him in that meeting. And I think right now I would just like to see a level of like, you know, just taking a little bit of accountability for some of the stuff that has happened. Like I said, like Joel doesn't really owe anything to the Sixers organization. If anything, the Sixers organization probably owes more to him. But if he is not going to be the guy that they can completely rely on all the time, it's probably going to have to change. You know, it's probably going to have to change like over the next year or so, because, you know, people will be throwing him into the trade machine. I've said time and time again, I don't think they're ever going to trade him unless he asks for a trade, and he can't even be traded this season because he just signed an extension in the offseason. So next summer would be the earliest that you can possibly do it. So look, maybe they have their year from hell and he asks out after the season, but I would imagine that if they were to ever actually trade him, knowing Daryl Morey's history, Joel Embiid would have to be just at a different point of his career. And is anyone actually trading for him when he is on that contract? He's on an MVP level contract, and he has not played like an MVP so far. Now, part of that might be the knee, but also that's just kind of his new reality. I think this meniscus surgery changes players for the rest of their career, and they just kind of have to manage it. So
did you see Jake Fisher, who's now writing on Mark Stein's Substack? He said that when ESPN reported the details, a league figure close to Embiid said to Jake, "Joel is going to be furious, and Embiid is going to try and find the Sixers' supposed snitch." How good of a detective do you think Joel is going to be? Do you think he will find the snitch?
Well, if he's good as Raptors Twitter, they figured it out pretty quick. I don't know if you saw that post, but
yes,
basically, if anyone missed this, one of the phrases that Nick Nurse used a lot when he was with the Raptors was the elephant in the room.
This is so good.
In the Shams report, he literally says elephant in the room from the source. So everyone is kind of thinking that it could potentially be Nick Nurse or at least someone from his staff. And I think a lot of that makes sense if you think about it. I mean, like, who wants to shift blame and not have any responsibility? The coach that's under pressure, or, you know, the front office that could potentially be under pressure. Like, I think that the way that this is going to break down is that if they find out that it actually was Nick Nurse, I think there's really no going back. Like, I don't think they'll fire him in season, to be completely honest with you, but I think they would readdress it in the offseason. I think ownership, my personal take on this is that I think ownership is too cheap. to fire him and pay him and then pay two coaches again, because they did that last year before Doc got hired by the Bucks. They were paying Doc and Nick Nurse, and Nick Nurse is like one of the 5 highest paid coaches in the NBA. Like, I don't think that they're just going to eat his salary because this thing isn't working out again, because that would be the 3rd coach in the Joel Embiid era. He's had like 4 different co-stars at this point, 3 different co-stars at least. And I think that the organization is probably getting to the point where it's like, figure this thing out. Because I'm sure guys will be upset. He'll lose trust in the locker room, but they're not going to do it in season, because that rarely ever works anyway, and they're not going to want to pay the money. So
yeah, I also just wonder if it's clutch, like trying to push this, because it's like, because Maxey looks awesome after some of these reports. And then also you take pressure off of Nick Nurse. It's like this, they're both represented by clutch. So you just wonder if like clutch is just like, hey, you know what would be awesome? If we make our guys look good and everybody else look bad.
That's
you know
genius.
what I mean?
I forgot Nick Nurse was clutch. That's a great point. I mean, I knew Maxey was, obviously, because of the Rich Paul connection, but it makes total sense.
Yeah. And if he's talking about elephant in the room to them all the time, I'm sure they're saying it all the time too.
Yeah, it's contagious.
It's a contagious thing. Okay, so one thing that the Sixers do have going for them is that they have some extra draft picks, and they also have some tradable salary. If the Sixers were going to try to salvage things via trade this season, is there any kind of player that they would look for? Is there any slop that we can cling to in this time of need?
So before the season, I think every Sixers fan's dream was that one of Trey Murphy or Jalen Johnson did not get extended by their team. Yeah. And then the Sixers could just like throw a ton of picks at them and get them on their rookie contract before. Because the Sixers really need, especially if this team is healthy, they really need like a big wing who can play with the rest, especially with the rise of Jared McCain. I think that they're going to be looking at forwards in this trade market, because I think with Maxey and McCain, whether you think that fit can work or not, you'll figure that out either like down the line. You know, maybe there is eventually it just doesn't work because they're both small guards and whatever. But for now, it seems like that's going to be something that they're going to want to try to make work in the meantime. So I think forwards are definitely, like, there are boring targets out there like who would just make sense. Like Dorian Finney-Smith is the most exciting name in the world, but for the Sixers to get a guy defensively like him that you can throw on the other team's best player, and then also on top of that can help with your rebounding and shooting woes from the wing spot, it wouldn't hurt to get a guy like him. But it also doesn't solve my biggest thing is, I think their biggest issue is the fact that they just have really a lack of passing and a lack of guys who can capably pass and create for themselves and make open shots. My dream target would probably be someone more, a realistic target would probably be someone like Cam Johnson, although money wise, it's a little bit hard to get to that because you'd probably have to include Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond, KJ Martin. To be clear, I'd be fine with that. I'm fine with that. I'm saying that the Nets might not want to take on, because Kelly Oubre and Drummond go into next year. So you'd have to figure out a way to either move those guys to another team, or, maybe the Nets are willing to take on they've had Andre Drummond. They love getting, we get Andre Drummond back, he's washed, and then we trade him halfway through the season to the Nets for the second time in 3 years here. But so there definitely are options out there. My dream target that is completely unrealistic, and I'm sure Grizzlies fans would be screaming if they heard this, but I would love for them to cheap out and not want to pay Santi Aldama and just overpay for him in a trade, because I literally watched him destroy us the other night. Yeah. I've always liked Santi, and he's also someone who is like kind of sneaky, young, silly. He's like 24 years old. Once again, big wing / big kind of, but super skilled. Was great for Spain in the Olympics, and then has really crushed it for the Grizzlies. And they have a lot of guys on that team now. They're super deep, and I don't know if they're going to pay him. I'd imagine they will just end up paying him, but I would love to be the team that lines up to trade for him, because I think that he has sneaky, I don't know if I want to say star upside, but certainly in the right context, I think he could be maximized and be like a very good starting level player at least.
All right, Trill, before our questions make you walk into traffic, let's shift the conversation towards Sixers rookie Jared McCain, one half of the happiest backcourt in the league. What was your opinion of McCain heading into the draft? Was he the guy you wanted the Sixers to take at 16?
So I had a list of players that I wanted the Sixers to target at 16. And if you look at my tweet, I think he actually was the best available because I had guys that went ahead of him like Rob Dillingham and Devin Carter. And then by the time the Sixers pick came around, he was actually technically number 1 left on my board. I had him 11th on my draft board when we did it on the podcast. And if I could go back now, he would be shooting up those rankings because I honestly, just to be completely transparent, when I saw him in Summer League and preseason, I was like horrified. I was like, oh no, did we just draft? Like, honestly, I got to the point where I was like, did we just draft a small, unathletic guard who can only shoot? Yeah. And that was like my biggest fear was that like, oh, we just drafted a bust. And then once he got into a rhythm, he's such a smart player that he just picks up things so quickly. He learned the pace of the NBA so quick. He's not just a shooter. He's like an elite shooter, moves off the ball like he's Stephen Clay. Yeah. He is someone who plays with pace with the ball, reminds me of almost of like a Jalen Brunson when he has the ball. And he's an underrated passer and playmaker, something he didn't really get to show off at Duke. And I remember before the draft being like, I thought he would be a good fit for the Sixers specifically because we just need, like I said, we need guys who can pass and shoot. And he has shown way more than I had ever expected in his first handful of starts in the NBA. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the stat, but he has the most points through 4 starts since the merger for any player. And actually, Allen Iverson was in second place for a rookie.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So that was pretty mind-blowing. I was joking. I don't know if you guys know the tweet that's the old Los Angeles Angels tweet about Mike Trout and Ohtani and how they're always breaking these records.
Oh, yeah.
But then they lose like 9-2. That's how I feel about Jared McCain. Like every week it's like a new thing. Oh, he has the highest BPM since Magic Johnson for a guard as a rookie. And then, the Sixers lose by 20. So at least we have that silver lining of Jared being so good. And he's blown my expectations out of the water. Like I liked him in the draft, but he's clearly been one of the 3 or 4 best rookies in this class. And he's still only 20 years old. So sky's the limit.
I was just going to ask Trill, what is that BPM? Because I know you've been checking it out every day.
Yeah, tell us.
What is he putting up right now?
I actually didn't check it this morning. I should have. I did. I think it's last time I checked it, it was first off, if you look at the BPM charts, the 2 players below him are Jimmy Butler and James Harden. So that tells you where he ranks in the league. He's top 30 in BPM right now, I believe. As of a few days ago, it was like a +5 BPM. I think he's down to like a +3.5, maybe. Okay. Maybe like a +4. But either way, if you look at the list of rookies that have a BPM even above 2, they almost all, unless they're like defensive specialists, they almost always make an all-star team at some point in their career. And once again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. It's only been 14 games. He's only played in, I think, 12. But rookies aren't this good right away, especially small guard rookies. Like if you look at the list, it's all big. It's all Victor Wembanyama, Michael Jordan. I think the only small guard on this whole list that was even in the same realm as him for BPM of guys that were 21 and under as rookies is Chris Paul. So, and he's gotten cosigns from, he got a phone call from Chris Paul. LeBron did the jersey swap with him. He has a close personal relationship with Steph Curry. So obviously those guys saw it before I even did, because he's just been absolutely incredible so far in his rookie season.
Yeah, I remember hearing a scout say before the draft that they thought McCain was the best shooter in the draft, even better than Reed. So
it's been him or Connect so far. Yeah. Back to back at 16 and 17.
Trill, I have to know what you think about Paul George. Like he did a podcast where he like clickbaited his team basically. Like with like a, hey, let's see what really happened behind the scenes. Like what is happening? Like I need to know, like what has your opinion been of Paul George since he's come in the doors for the Sixers? And then like, what do we make of him using all of this like downfall to help his own podcast? Like what do we make of that?
Well, it's a fellow content creator. You got to hand it to him. That's kind of
genius. Yes, like, sure. If the podcast is the most important thing, he is crushing it.
Well, I have a long history of having some of my favorite players in the NBA come into the Sixers and just sucking. So I'm kind of used to this. Like, I'm not like, it's not like Al Horford, Kyle Lowry, add Paul George to the list. Like, at this point, James Harden, like, and even to be fair, Harden was very good for the Sixers. And even though he had his, he had his downside, he also gave me some of my favorite moments in the past few years, especially in that Celtics series. So, but no, it's just been frustrating because the thing with Paul George is that I remember making an argument on the podcast last year that Harden was way better than Paul George last year. And the only reason Paul George made the All-Star team over him was because of politics. And I thought that Paul George had, amongst Clippers fans and amongst some of NBA Twitter, I felt that he had gotten a little bit underrated, but he probably was overrated by the media and the NBA world at large because of, he's a Hall of Fame level player, one of the best players of all time. And I think the thing that has been so frustrating for me so far has been the fact that we haven't really been able to see Paul George in the role that I wanted him to be in. Because him, Maxey, and Embiid literally only played in that Memphis game together. That's the only game they played so far, and he got hurt again. And in a way that this was kind of predictable with his age and his injuries and all of that. But in another way, it's like, this is one of the best wing shooters of all time that's shooting in the 20s from three. Like these kind of things, like, look, they happen to other teams for sure. I know Lakers fans are like, think that only guys shoot bad on their team. But the Sixers have a weird amount of these things happening where like a guy will either come to the team and have like a career low, like he had a career high shooting from three last year. Yeah. And once again, if he came here and this is the same thing as the Joel thing. If he came here and performed and he was doing all this stuff on his podcast, then no one would care. Like, no one cares that Draymond Green goes on his podcast and screams at clouds every week because the Warriors are winning and he's won all these titles and he's stamped forever because of that. But Paul George, because of the rep that he has and because of the fact that the team is struggling right now and he's massively struggling and he has these expectations because of the contract, it just feels like it's kind of a perfect storm for everyone just to be mad at him. And look, I don't know how anyone would really deal with this situation. It just seems like the vibes are totally off. And I really can't even blame him, even though I would like him to be playing a lot better and not podcasting about the team having beef. Like, I really can't. I can blame him for the podcast part for sure. But just in general, I want to give it more time and hopefully he can get healthy and they can have a normal amount of time together to figure this thing out.
That's a very respectful response, I would say. Way to go.
He's one of my favorite players. It sucks. Like, I love Paul George. Prime Paul George was one of my favorite players to watch. So it's just, it's very, typical that he would come to the Sixers and just fall apart.
I just can't get out of my head. The, you haven't seen playoff P yet. And then him just getting absolutely outplayed by Joe Ingles for 6 games. Like, I just can't get that out of my head.
Unbelievable, dude. Yeah. And this year he said he was going to let you've bullied me. Now you're going to see the bully. And then someone asked me, what was your favorite Paul George Sixers moment? And I said, the first half of our preseason game in Iowa against the Minnesota Timberwolves that was not even on television. We had to watch a stream of it online.
Okay, Trill, we have 2 games for you today. 2 games. Wow. I was watching Sixers Heat, and it was a miserable game to watch. And I was thinking about how much more watchable it would have been if Tyrese Maxey had been playing. And I started wondering where Maxey would rank in terms of players who, when they're out of their lineup, their team's watchability falls off a cliff. So to answer that, we're going to do a draft. 3 rounds, snake draft. We're going to draft 3 players each. So we are selecting players based on when they are out, our interest in watching their team play takes a nosedive. And I'm going to choose the order. So Andrew, you're going to go first. Okay, Trill, you're going to go second. And I will have the turn. So I'll have picks 3 and 4. So Andrew, who is your first selection in players who, when they're out of the lineup, their team's watchability falls off the cliff? I wish I had a good little name for that. Is this
just Sixers or what is this?
No,
help me.
No, whole league.
League.
When you're looking through the games or you're watching a TNT game, you find out this player's out. You're like, I'm not even going to bother watching it.
Yeah. I mean, the number one pick for me is super duper easy, and it's Anthony Edwards.
Okay, interesting.
That's
pick,
a good
Andrew.
one.
I would never watch the Timberwolves if I knew Anthony Edwards was not in the lineup, because then what is it? It's just
Julius Randle and Gobert.
A lot of Julius Randle jab steps. It's like trying to make Rudy Gobert a thing on offense. I mean, it would be brutal. So yeah, give me Anthony Edwards, number one.
That's a great one.
Andrew. Trill, who would you like to select? With
Can
number
I go
2?
Opposite here, where when they play, I don't like the team, and when they're out, I love to watch the team? Can I do that?
Who is that?
Kyle Kuzma with the Wizards. Like Kyle
That's a good
Kuzma
call.
with the Wizards this season has been one of the most I literally don't watch the games when he plays, because he wants to take 20 shots a game.
Yeah.
He thinks he's LeBron, and seeing all of their young players to start this season when he was injured, look, I never want guys to get injured, but when he was out of the lineup, it was like so refreshing to see like Bilal showing steps as a on-ball creator, and Bub Carrington getting to cook, and Jordan Poole was even playing off the ball and playing some of his best career post Warriors that he's had, and it was so enjoyable just to see, like, for Wizards fans that have just been so tortured for so long. They haven't had a 50-win season since the 70s, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To have this like little glimmer of hope that they had for those games where it looked like Bilal was a future star, Bub Carrington was, blossoming into the starting level point guard, Sarr was showing things on defense, even if the offense is still really rough, and then to just have all that taken away from them, just to watch Kyle Kuzma come out there and just think that he is an all-star, a guy that they probably should have traded a year ago, to be honest. So that's my answer. I'm trying not to be mean here, but I think that Kyle Kuzma is happy in DC doing what he's doing, and I love their young players, and I'm excited for their future.
So he's the anti-Maxey, Kyle Kuzma.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
So at the turn, I'm going to take my top 2 picks. Thrilled to get them. I think they're 2 of the more obvious ones. There are some other good names. I'm going Steph, and I'm going Wemby. Both kind of obvious to me. Steph, although I will say that game he was out, which was the game that Lindy Waters had like 21.
Yeah, I was about to say.
It was very fun, I will admit. And Buddy Hield, the way he's playing right now, does make the Warriors a little bit more enjoyable. But Steph takes them to such a higher level for me that I have to include Steph. And then Wemby is also pretty obvious. Now, granted, me and Andrew had to watch the Wemby-less Spurs beat the Thunder this week. A miserable watch, furious the entire game.
Yeah,
maybe I'm bringing that to this selection. I'm just so mad at that
Keldon
version
Johnson
of the Spurs. Game? Oh my gosh, Keldon Johnson was on fire. So yes, those will be my first 2 picks. So back to Trill.
I'm just going to take the obvious one. Jokic is you've seen the stats, right? Where when he doesn't play, they're the worst offense in NBA history. And when he does play, they're the best offense in NBA history. I feel like that is, I think right now what he's having, look, obviously as a Philly guy, I had to back up Embiid for years, but now it's just got to the point where it's like Jokic is maybe having the best offensive season of all time. And when you watch the Nuggets without him, especially with like, obviously post injury or whatever Jamal Murray's dealing with, he was always never able to scale up, but it's even tougher to watch now that he's not the same that he once was. Yeah. And outside of a random, Michael Porter Jr. game like they had the other night against the beat up Pelicans, there's just not a ton to glom onto that is a lot of fun to watch from the Nuggets, and everything works so perfectly when he plays and nothing works when he doesn't play. So I definitely would have to take Jokic.
So Andrew, you get 2 picks here back to back.
Unfortunately, we've seen this just a ton this season. It's Zion Williamson. Like the I have no interest in watching the Pelicans when Zion's out. Just none. And especially when they're playing this badly, like they just can't win games, and like they just don't look functional. And Zion is so much fun to watch. Like when he in that playing game against the Lakers, that was like so much fun, and it was peak Zion. And you were like, okay, this is going to be amazing. You're going to get to see him in the playoffs, and it was just a disaster not to see him. And this season has been a clear disaster for the Pelicans. I didn't think I was going to do this, but I think I am. I'm going to go Cam Thomas.
Let's go. Cam Thomas.
Thomas, wow.
The Nets have just been in a lot of competitive games this year. And so there's like a high watchability with them in particular. And they just have like a lot of just like random guys. But the thing that keeps your eyes glued to the TV is, what is Cam Thomas going to do? He's either going to shoot them completely out of this game, or he's going to go completely nuts, and he's going to do things that very few players in the NBA can do.
Yep.
Like Trill, I know that you've talked about this on your show, in that it is hard to decide if he's good or what is he? Because if you read his stats out, if you read these stats out about any player, you would just say, hey, this season, a player is scoring 25 points per game, 3 boards, 3 assists, almost a steal per game, shooting 45% from the field, 39% from 3 on 7 attempts per game, and is shooting 86% from the free throw line. You would say,
all-star
wow,
conversation. That's
an all-star. That's a guy I want to build around. And our own Sam Amick has reported that, in fact, they don't want to. And so it's just his like career is fascinating to me, but also just watching him this season has been fascinating. And if he's not in the lineup, count me out. I don't care. Not watching.
The list that we did the other day where we were talking about potential Cam Thomas trades.
Yeah. Do you have that in front of you?
I don't have the exact list, but it was essentially every player that has shot at least like 59 true shooting and is averaging like 25 points per 36 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Was an all NBA player. Like, it was
Giannis
literally
and Jokic and like all these guys.
SGA, Karl Anthony Towns this season. Like, you were like reading it off, and then Cam Thomas was also on the list.
He's on the list.
Because basically he was a player that if you were to like do a 2K build of him, you just put all of his chips and all of his points into tough shot making.
Yeah.
And I will admit, he's gotten a little bit more aware this season. Like, he's shooting more threes instead of long twos.
Yeah.
He's getting to the rim a little bit more often. He's passing a little bit more, bit. That's all we ask from Cam Thomas. And I do think that there's a world where he could just be on a team and just be, I think we talked about like maybe the Orlando Magic, or I joked on the podcast, like, why can't the Sixers use Cam Thomas? Like, we have the worst offense in the NBA. Could it hurt? Like, could it hurt just to have a guy who can at least take over games like that, coming off your bench at a minimum? So maybe there's more to Cam Thomas, man. Like, I don't know. Like, he has pedigree. He has the Oak Hill scoring record. He was SEC as a freshman in college, and then has gotten better every year in the NBA, even if you don't think his game is perfect.
Yeah. Is there another player that's 23 years old that has done this, that we have had this kind of opinion on ever?
No, maybe the argument like has swayed so far, because it used to be like cool to be like Lou Williams or someone in that mold, and then it became all about like, you got to be efficient and you got to be, like, whatever. Maybe it has swayed so far in the other direction that Cam Thomas is going to recorrect this whole argument and kind of rethink about how we think about this thing. But no, you're right. I don't think there's anyone that would at least be this efficient that people would kind of, be like a punching bag.
The only one I'm thinking about, and he wasn't really a punching bag, but that one season Colin Sexton had with the Cavs, which we were also talking about, like, you would look at it historically and it just like doesn't make sense, because he's like super efficient and everything looked amazing across the board, but no one was talking about him as like, we got to go get Colin Sexton.
I remember after the trade, like, literally doing a side-by-side on the podcast and being like, look, I'm not saying that he's Donovan Mitchell, but if you look at their age 21 seasons before he got hurt, they were almost identical side-by-side. Yeah. So I was like, maybe Danny Ainge is cooking here. Little did I know Lauri Markkanen was the one that would actually become the all-star from that trade.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe this is all-star D'Lo, like 18, 19, D'Lo is 22 years old, made the all-star team for the Brooklyn Nets in like almost this exact situation.
Yep.
Where it's like the glue guys Nets, and he was 21, 4-7. He took 7 attempts from 3, was 37%. I mean, maybe this is just like a D'Lo season where he bounces around. People have to convince themselves of him. That is probably like the most likely scenario with Cam Thomas, but I just find him to be outrageously entertaining.
The highs of Cam Thomas are unlike many players, I would say. Like the highs, like where I literally joke, like you catch him on any given night and you're like, oh, this is an MVP candidate. You're like, he'll score 40 on like and miss like 3 shots.
Yeah. Yeah, it is wild.
Okay, Trill, who is your final pick?
So I thought a lot about this, and this is more projecting than it is actual because we haven't seen it, to be honest. Like this player has played basically in every game this year. And actually, the funniest thing about James Harden and the Clippers this season, and I know people don't think about James Harden when they think about watchability.
Right.
But the funniest thing about them is that going into the last game, at least, the Clippers were losing the James Harden minutes. Their offense was better when he sat, and their defense was elite when he sat. But he is doing just enough to keep them in these games against starting level units. Like when they play against the Warriors and when they play against teams that are like actually legitimately competitive, that the bench units then come in and kind of, can take over from there and win those other minutes against other benches because they're kind of a deep team. But who's the second best creator on the Clippers is my question.
No.
Exactly. They don't have anyone who could even pretend to be James Harden. If he were to miss 10 games, they immediately become, I think literally Kevin Porter Jr. is their second best dribbler on the team. Like they don't have any, and he's been one of the worst players in the NBA this season.
Right. Yeah.
And then you add in the fact that like everyone is working because of James Harden. Like Zubac is playing at an insane level, playing off of Harden. All these connector pieces, Derek Jones Jr., Chris Dunn, Batum, Norm Powell's having like a Klay Thompson level season right now because of James Harden. So when he goes out of the lineup, if he ever does, the Clippers will become probably one of the worst teams to watch in the NBA, I would imagine.
He was on my list. So that leaves me with the final one. And shout out to both of you guys for having very, very good and original picks. I'm going to take the other obvious name. So I'll just have the 3 obvious ones. It's Giannis. I'm not really interested in watching the Bucks without Giannis.
Sure. Yeah.
Dame
even with Dame and Chris Middleton? If Chris Middleton comes back and plays basketball ever again?
Yeah, I mean, Dame theoretically does still have those moments. And he has had those moments sometimes, but it's just not the same. Because watching Dame on the Blazers for all those years, I mean, those were some entertaining teams to watch, and it just doesn't feel the same on the Bucks. So that means that for our Tyrese Maxey All-Stars, Tyrese Maxey ended up not being picked. But, credit to Jared McCain. Maybe
McCain
that's
now,
why.
Yeah.
I was going to say, McCain's there. There's no drop off.
All right, so that brings us to Andrew versus the Beat, our weekly trivia show where Andrew goes head-to-head with a beat writer. This case, Trill Bro Dude from You Know Ball. Trill, you played trivia before. I came up with 8 questions about the Sixers. Some are easy, some are hard. You're going to give me a number between 1 and 8. It'll correspond to a question. If you get it right, you'll get at least 2 points. If you get it wrong, Andrew will have a chance to steal for 1, and we'll go back and forth till all the questions have been asked and answered. So, Trill, to start us off, what number between 1 and 8 would you like to pick?
Let's go with 6 for the Sixers.
Question number 6. Which 2 teammates has Joel Embiid played the most amount of games with in his career? And you get 1 point per correct answer. So Joel Embiid's teammates that he's played the most games with.
Wow. Okay, so I just guess 1 and then...
Yeah, you get 1 point per correct answer.
Oh my God. This is actually really hard because I don't like the Sixers turn over their roster so much.
So much.
It's kind of insane. I'm going to guess Tyrese Maxey has to be on that list.
That is incorrect. Andrew, you have a chance to steal. Which 2 teammates have Joel Embiid played the most amount of games with?
Is Tobias Harris on this list?
Oh, Tobias Harris is number 1, Andrew.
Oh my God.
Can you get number 2?
Toby was on there. Let's see. It is wild how much they have turned this team over.
It's insane.
By the way, Tyrese Maxey was 4th. Shake Milton is 5.
Shake Milton.
That should give you an idea of who this player is, because I think I have an idea, but we'll
What
see.
about Robert Covington?
A great guess, Andrew, but it is actually Furkan
Korkmaz.
Korkmaz.
I knew it.
Korkmaz.
That's why when you said Shake Milton, I was like, I have an idea that this might be Furkan, because at one point they were the 2 longest tenured Sixers other than Joel Embiid.
Oh, really? Wow.
Furkan.
All right, Andrew, you have control of the board.
Number 1.
Question number 1. The Sixers are 2-12. Their worst start since the 15-16 season, when they tied the record for worst start to a season with 18 consecutive losses. Jahlil Okafor led that team in scoring with 17.5 points per game. Who was second in points per game for the 15-16 Sixers? Second in points per game for the 15-16 Sixers, Andrew.
Oh, boy.
Memorable team. They won 10 whole games.
What about Robert Covington, who I just mentioned?
Andrew, it's a great guess, but unfortunately, he was 3rd. So
No.
Trill has a chance to steal.
15, 16? Was it Isaiah Cannon?
Another great guess.
Isaiah Cannon.
He was actually, he was 5th. Nerlens was 4th. And number 2,
TJ?
Ish Smith.
Oh,
Ish Smith.
the wrong small guard.
Oh. Shout out to
Okay,
Ish Smith.
Trill, back to you.
Wow.
Oh, what did you say? Did you say a number?
Let's go 3. Allen
3.
Iverson.
In a game against Cleveland, Jared McCain attempted 26 shots. Since the 2020 draft, there are only 10 other rookies who attempted 26 plus shots in a game, and we're going to name them all. Okay, so how this works, Trill will give me a name, then Andrew will give me a name. We'll go back and forth till one of you stumbles. So this is since the 2020 draft. So you remember that draft, the COVID draft.
Yeah.
10 players. All these guys had at least one game where they attempted 26 shots, and they did it as a rookie, to be clear.
Okay. As a rookie. Okay.
Yeah, as a rookie.
yes.
So I'm going to guess first Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards had one game like that, just to show you how rare this is.
Ooh.
Okay, Andrew.
Did Jalen Green do it?
Jalen Green also did it once, Andrew.
Oh.
Back to Trill.
Oh, my gosh.
LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo did it once.
No,
Back to Andrew.
this is scary. This is so scary, Al.
It's so rare.
It's so rare. Okay.
I will say only 3 players on this list did it more than once.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. There's a player I'm thinking of, but I just don't know if he did it during his rookie season. I kind of think that it wasn't during his rookie season. I won't say his name now. I'll mention it afterwards. Another 2020 draft guy. 26 times. That's a lot. For a rookie, that's a lot.
As a rookie. Any guesses, Andrew?
Gosh, I don't think he did it during his rookie season. Oh, what about Wemby?
That is correct. Wemby is the only one who's done it 5 times. He did it 5 times as a rookie. No one was close.
Okay.
He was far and away the top guy. Okay, back to Trill.
Cade Cunningham.
Cade did it twice. Back to Andrew.
Wow. It's like, why did it take us so long to get to the number 1 picks? Like that's
They get the keys.
Speaking of, what about Paolo Banchero?
Damn.
The only other player who did it more than once, he did it twice. So now we have 5 names left. We're going back to Trill. All of these players only did it once in their rookie season, took 26 plus shots in a game.
You know what? This might be wrong, but I'm going to guess Cam Thomas.
Trill, That is incorrect. Somehow was not Cam Thomas. Andrew, any other guesses?
I mean, I was thinking this is the one that I don't think it's right because I don't think he did it during his rookie season, but Sadiq Bey, I know he scored 50, but I think it was maybe in his second year.
Yeah, it wasn't him. So the funny name is Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey did it.
Oh my God. The Denver game. How could I forget? He had 39 points.
Wow.
We had two Blazers. Scoot did it last year, which I do not remember, and Shaden Sharp did it. Then we have Gigi Jackson, which kind of makes sense last year.
Oh, awesome.
And then the other name you would have never gotten, Jeremy Sohan did it.
They let Jeremy Sohan shoot 26 times in a game as a rookie.
26 times. That's wild.
I'm going to go look up that game.
That is hard to believe.
They wanted Wemby, right? He was the 22 draft, so that would have been tanking for Wemby in 23, right?
Yeah, let's see. Actually, he had a game with 25 shots too. So it was actually a win over the Pacers, 22 and 13 for Jeremy.
This is how you're smart about tanking.
Wow.
All right, Andrew, board is yours. You're up by 2.
Number 2.
Question number 2. Jared McCain has scored 20-plus points in 6 of his first 14 games. There are only 3 other Sixers rookies who accomplished that feat. Can you name them all?
Oh, boy.
20-plus points in at least 6 of the first 14 games.
Okay. I mean, Allen Iverson?
Correct, Andrew.
I gave you that one.
Does it count? Do injuries count?
Do injuries count?
Could they play a game, be injured for 20 games, come back? Does that count as consecutive games? Is that a thing?
I see what you're saying.
It's a good
Andrew.
qualifier.
See what you're saying. I'm actually going to look up. Yes, that would count.
It would count. Okay.
Yes.
So remind me of the stat again.
In their first 14 games in the NBA, scored at least 20 plus 6 times.
Okay. What about Michael Carter Williams?
Andrew, that is incorrect.
Oh, dang.
So you do get a point. And Trill, you have a chance to steal some points here.
Since he asked that question, I'm going to guess Joel Embiid.
Yes, and so that is actually a name I did not have down because I just did the first 14 games, but I looked it up and that is correct. So you do get a point.
I should have. Why did I ask a question that was clearly about Joel Embiid and then not answer Joel Embiid? What is wrong with me? That was one of the. I mean, I do a lot of dumb things. I was put it on the list of one of the dumbest things I've done. Wow. Can I just hand Trill an answer? Let me just give him an answer.
I gave you the Iverson one because I said earlier in the episode, I basically explained exactly what the question was.
That's true, but it's Allen Iverson. I mean, come on.
Who did not guess that first? Everyone.
Andrew, to make you feel even worse. So Michael Carter Williams did sit out 4 games during his first 14. Okay. He actually scored 20 plus 6 times in his first 15 games, Andrew.
Seriously?
Yeah, I just looked it up. Sorry.
I remember him being awesome and just I remember thinking, man, the Sixers have really got something going here with MCW, you know.
Dude, he had 9 steals in his first NBA game.
He almost had a quadruple double, right? Or close to it, I think. It was
22, 7, 12, and 9.
Unbelievable.
With 4 threes.
Against the defending champion Miami Heat with LeBron.
He fooled us all.
Unbelievable.
Okay, Trill, you can still get 2 more points.
Oh, man.
Charles Barkley?
No, wrong.
No,
I'm saying it that way because it sounds true, but let me double check. So the other 2 names.
I mean, they had a lot of vets on that team still. Moses Malone was still on the team. He might
double check. So he only did it
the shot diet.
He only did it twice in his first 14 games. Other 2 players: Jerry Stackhouse.
Never would have got that.
Jaleel Okafor, who I just mentioned.
I might have gotten Ja, but I definitely wouldn't have gotten Jerry Stackhouse.
Shoot.
All right. So Trill, you've cut it to 1.
I forget about Jaleel Okafor.
Honestly, I forgot about Jerry Stackhouse. I'll go number 7.
Number 7. Okay. Which of the following categories do the Sixers rank the lowest in the league? So here are the 4 categories: half-court offense, transition offense, half-court defense, transition defense. And as a hint, actually, it's not a hint, they're terrible in all of these, to be clear. But which one do they rank the lowest?
As a hint, it's all of them.
I'm going to guess half-court offense.
Trill, that is absolutely correct. They are 28th. Currently in the half-court, they are scoring 89.1 points per 100 possessions.
That's unreal.
Trill.
Their half-court offense is absolutely brutal. Like watching a game, especially without Joel, is just a painful experience.
Yes, I would argue they've all been painful, but okay, Andrew, the board is yours. You're now down by 1, Andrew.
Oh, no. 4.
Question number 4. Now, this is the most sicko question I've ever asked. I'm very interested to see if you can get this.
Mm-hmm.
Gershon Yabusele was the 16th pick in the 2016 draft.
Yeah.
Prior to this season with the Sixers, Yabu had played the 5th fewest games of all the first-round picks in that 2016 draft. 5th fewest games. After appearing in all 14 of the Sixers games this season, however, he has now played the 6th fewest games of the 2016 first-rounders, moving ahead of this player who was drafted a few spots after Yabu by the Detroit Pistons.
Oh, my gosh, Al.
So we're talking 2016 draft. I told you Yabu was picked 16th, so it's a player taken after him, still in the first round, by the Pistons. Can you get it?
This is... I honestly don't have any clue who this is.
This is hard.
I don't have any clue. I know like Malik Beasley and Karis LeVert and those guys were after this, but they definitely weren't selected by the Pistons. I think
it has to be someone who ended up not playing a lot because Yabu just moved ahead of them.
I know. I think like the Sixers got Furkan Korkmaz in that draft. But I have no clue who the Pistons took.
So no guess, Andrew.
I mean, I just don't know. I just know all the guys that I've listed were after Yabu, but like I just don't know. I don't remember who the Pistons took though.
All right. Trill, any guesses?
Idea. Was it a foreign player? Can I get that hint?
It was not.
Oh, Jesus. Because there was one random name that occasionally will float around in Detroit Pistons circles that I was going to say that was a foreign player, but no. I actually don't know if I know this either. And I'm like obsessed with the draft, so this is not a good look for me.
So he's from go ahead. Let me know if you want to give up.
I don't have a guess. I literally don't even have a guess.
He was born in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, went to Marquette. 6'10", 240 pounds. Everyone thought he was going to be a shooter. I'm, of course, talking about Henry Ellenson.
Oh, my God. I would have never gotten that.
What?
You could have given me 100 guesses and I wouldn't have guessed Henry Ellison.
Henry John Ellenson.
I don't think I've thought about his name since the draft.
Yep.
He played 19 games. He actually ended up playing for 5 years in the NBA.
Wow.
So
5 years?
Where? What?
He once scored 17 in an NBA game. What do you think about that? Pretty good against Memphis.
I think I'm done with the Ellenson fun facts. Like we can move on.
Okay. All right. I have more of them. All right. So Trill, you're up by 1. You have 2 choices left, 5 or 8.
Let's go 8.
Question number 8. What is KJ Martin's career high in points? Now you get to choose who answers first. So you can make Andrew answer first and then go higher or lower, or you can answer first and then Andrew would go higher or lower. If you make Andrew answer and he gets it exactly correct, he would get a bonus point. So what would you like to do?
I'll hand it off to Andrew.
All right, Andrew. KJ Martin, career high in points.
Career high
set
in
the bar,
points
Andrew.
for KJ Martin.
In points. KJ Martin. Career high.
Oh, boy. I don't even know where to begin with thinking about a career high for KJ Martin. I did once talk to Kenyon Martin in line in Vegas while we were standing in line getting pizza about his son. So that was cool. That's the only thing.
High?
We were not
That would be
talking
very
about his
helpful
career
in this
high,
moment.
though. It would have been really helpful if I would have been like, do you know what his career high is?
Just asking his dad trivia.
Just asking his dad trivia about his son.
By the way, KJ plays way better in front of his dad. His 2 best games of the year were against the Lakers and the Clippers this year in LA. I just want to point that out.
Wow. Shout out to
Is
Kenyon
that a
Martin.
hint, Andrew? Is Trill giving you a hint? I don't know.
Is that a hint? He played well. What could that be? I'll say 23.
All right. Andrew set the bar at 23. Trill?
I'm going to go higher. I think he scored like 25 in a game before, but I'm not sure.
Would you believe that once upon a time, KJ Martin scored 31 points in an NBA game?
Wow.
Which that
Sorry,
means Trill
KJ.
gets the points.
That was rude.
Unbelievable.
That was rude of me.
All right, Andrew. Now, this is very exciting. Actually, it's not. Never mind. You've lost, Andrew. But you do get first dibs.
This is very exciting. You're a loser.
This is very exciting, Andrew. You lost. This is great for the show. Okay. Here we go. Final question, Andrew. You can make it close, though. You can get within one.
Okay.
3 Sixers on the current roster have had a 50-point game in their career. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and this player. Who is it, Andrew?
Oh, boy.
Embiid, Maxey, and...
God, there's a couple guys that I gravitate toward, but I just don't know which one it is. Actually, it could be another one too. I will go with Eric Gordon.
Andrew? That is correct. You got it. And you finish 1 point behind Trill.
Yeah.
Congrats, Trill. You won the week 5-4.
Let's go. Thank you. I think Andrew beat me the other time, so I think that I'm down 2-1 in the series if I remember correctly.
Right. So we have a rubber match. The next time the Sixers have a terrible week and we land on them.
If I only didn't just hand you the Joel Embiid answer just on a silver platter. God, that was so dumb. Hey, go listen to the You Know Ball pod. It is a really fun NBA podcast. It's for the sickos. It's for the casual fan. It's a great pod. So go check it out. Trill, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, Andrew, that was Sixers week. Don't you want the wheel to land on your favorite team next? The Wheel Fandom teams have now lost their last 7 games.
Isn't
we have
that
not
crazy?
seen a win in 2 weeks. Honestly, this is kind of what I always wanted the wheel to become, and maybe it's taken us 3 years to get there.
Yeah.
But if the wheel has gained some powers and is going to just destroy every team it selects, I'm going to be having a good time.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
we have 26 teams remaining. A lot of teams on here.
Yep.
So let's spin the wheel and see who is the Wheel of Fandom team going to be for next week. It will be the... Oh, this is great. Denver Nuggets. The Denver
Okay.
Nuggets. And I say this is great because they have some awesome games this week.
Yeah.
I was actually looking at it right before we were coming on. So I know they play the Lakers next.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
their next game. Let me bring up their schedule real quick. So they play Dallas tonight. Well, this will Friday night.
Yeah.
On ESPN.
Yeah.
Great game.
Great.
Okay. And then they play the Lakers on NBA TV on Saturday. Then they play the Knicks on Monday
Oh, beautiful.
at home. And then they play the Utah Jazz on Wednesday.
Hey, listen, that's
Okay.
great. That's a great schedule.
Great.
Yeah, that's going to be
great
wonderful. Looking forward to watching some Denver Nuggets and digging into the Nuggets. Getting to watch a lot of Russell Westbrook will be great.
Yep.
Yep. Hey, if you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it on the show. Just like this one from Steph Curry, 30 money. What? Said, I just started listening to this. This is 5 stars. I just started listening to this, and I'm a teen, but this is honestly amazing. It keeps me interested and captivated. It also has good info about the NBA, just like an overview of basically everything. Definitely, please listen to this. Thank you so much for that review. Next one, 5 stars. Love the show. Thank you, Alex and Andrew, for speaking about Belgian players this Saturday. I hope it did not frighten anybody with my smiley face this morning in Brussels while running and listening to you. Thank you so much. That review comes from Belgium. This next one comes from Australia. Nice pod, 5 stars, a great pod, good vibes, and I wish Andrew tried to win the quiz a bit harder. He seems happy to lose the quiz. From
Wow.
Will WJD.
They think you're throwing it.
Oh, diss. And it's going to look even worse now to Will WDJ as I just
this week it really does seem like you threw it.
literally handed one to Trill. Did not mean to. I don't know, like my brain just jumps all over the place during the trivia, so not great. Thanks so much for listening. Please leave us one of those 5-star reviews. We'll read it on the show. Would very much appreciate that. Please share the show. We are on YouTube, so if you are looking to listen to the show on YouTube, or you want to watch the show, you want to watch the look on my face when I get wrong answers on trivia, please join us on YouTube. You can search for The Athletic NBA Daily, and you can find that. Please subscribe to the channel. Would very much appreciate that. Hope you guys are doing great. Enjoy your weekend and the basketball, and we will talk to you guys again next Saturday.